Football season is about to begin. Now it's a question of who will win. The rosters are set, on the table are a few bets, and Odell likes the feeling of poop on his skin. Welcome to the Mish. Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode of the 2020 season's Mish. We're going to talk about week 1 this week. So, obviously to start off, let's crack a beer. Man, oh man. All right. To start off, we will just talk about a couple of little business things. I believe Derek is the only person that has made a payment so far. This season, it is $15, and you can obviously, I'll take cash, but there's also online banking that you could use to pay. So I have Venmo, PayPal, and Zelle. My PayPal is just Joey Let, all undercase, no spaces. Venmo is at Joey Let. The J and the L are capitalized, and it's a dash in between Joey Let, so it's a Joey-Let. And then Zelle, it's just my phone number, so 920-615-5275. So yeah, just whenever you get a chance, just send in that payment. Don't want the situation we had a couple years ago, so thanks. Next, we've got some transactions to talk about. There's nothing too notable this week, as you know, rosters were just getting set. No one really was eager to make moves. Well, not necessarily nobody. I mean, I know for sure I was trying to make moves and other people were trying to make moves, but only one trade as of this recording has occurred since the league had the draft. So that trade was Bruce traded Mike Williams and James Robinson to Colin for Mecole Hardman. Initially, I thought it helped both teams. It gave Bruce Mecole, who I think is probably going to end the year better than Mike Williams. It may not be that way to start, but it also cleared up a roster spot, which I knew Bruce was trying to get done so that he could pick up a kicker, which he did. And it gave Colin more depth at running back, and he still had a good receiver there with Mike Williams. It's just a matter of who's going to be dropped from Colin's team. Well, as we learned, I don't know, a couple minutes after this trade went through, the player that Colin was dropping was the one he just got, James Robinson, which I thought was quite interesting. It reminds me of a trade that went down last year with that involved Bruce. Don't know why he did that, but James Robinson, being a free agent, was quickly picked up by State Farm, dropping his team's namesake, Taysom Hill, essentially making it a three-way trade. So after all that, I would say Bruce definitely won that trade, and State benefited as well by getting James Robinson, getting rid of Taysom Hill, who is an exciting player to watch, but not necessarily fantasy relevant, and when he is, it's very hard to predict. However, Colin probably, I mean, he got Mike Williams, but could have had James Robinson too, but dropped him. So, interesting stuff. All right, we are now moving on to a lot of people's favorite parts of the Mishpo, the power rankings. So I just kind of based it off of my personal opinion. And look, I don't make the rules, so if you got issues, take it up with Sacco, Colin. See you this year. Adam, you're off duty for this year at least. Could be back, but yeah, I mean, if you've got any issues with this, just take it up with Colin. Let's kick this off at 14 with Derek. Your team, you've got Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, a very old quarterback and a very young quarterback. One is likely, well, Tom Brady might stay for a little bit, but Joe Burrow's getting in, and he could be a stud this year. So it's just, you don't really know about him. He's never played a snap of an NFL game before, so that's the real question. You've got Kamara, who's, you know, pretty good. He did have a bit of a rough year last year, but he could bounce back. And the rest of your running backs are mostly, you know, backups or guys that will be kind of being a running back by committee. Your receivers, Thielen obviously number one in Minnesota. Keenan Allen is the number 1 in the Los Angeles. Yeah, the Los Angeles Chargers. Djax, Brandon Cooks, Conley. Those guys are all, like, Brandon Cooks especially, he's, you know, the number 1 in Houston, but he's injured right now, so you might have to watch that for this week. But the rest of those guys, Djax could have a good year, but he's had injury problems. Zach Ertz, you got him back. A solid tight end. Nothing too bad to say about him. And then, I mean, your defense and your kicker, Cowboys and Crosby, not bad either, but nothing too, I mean, besides Joe Burrow, nothing I think is super exciting about your team, but, you know, pretty solid all around. All right, that moves me to number 13. We've got Sam. Quarterbacks are Dak and Baker. Again, Dak is a pretty solid quarterback, but Baker had a bit of a bad year last year. Some people think he'll bounce back this year, but I guess we'll find out. Derrick Henry is your obviously clear number 1 running back, but on the rest are kind of question marky. You got Ronald Jones, who is going to be looking to share some time back there in Tampa Bay with Fournette potentially, maybe some other guys in there too. And then Carry-On and Latavius, interesting people, but not huge upside. Allen Robinson, DJ Chark, those guys are pretty solid receivers. I really like Chark this year, depending on how that Jags team goes. He could be a breakout candidate. Austin Hooper changing teams. He was really good last year in Atlanta, but that could have just been a product of the system. So I guess we'll see how he does over in Cleveland. And the Patriots defense, best defense last year, but he had a lot of opt-outs this past season. It will be interesting to see how that works for them. And then Robbie Gould, been a solid kicker in the league for many years, so nothing really there that nothing such. All right, number 12. Kind of surprised he's this low when I went through, did all my rankings personally, but I've got Michael, his quarterback's P. River. Changing teams, he's always been, you know, kind of a middle-of-the-road quarterback. Not huge upside, but, you know, he can get the job done most weeks. Montgomery has your number 1 running back. He had a bit of an injury a couple weeks ago, but it seems like he's on his way back, and he could be a stud this year. We'll see how the Bears offense can function, but definitely a guy to watch. Kareem Hunt in there, Naheem Hines and DeAndre Swift, all guys that could potentially have great years as well, especially Swift, if he can take over that Detroit backfield. Obviously, you got Michael Thomas as your receiver number 1, and, you know, yeah, you can't guard Mike. That's his Twitter handle for a reason. So we got Cooper Kupp as well. AJ Green, who's coming back off of not playing last year, and he could potentially be very good. Jamison Crowder, Curtis Samuel, Jerry Jeudy in there too. All solid guys. Jerry Jeudy, that rookie. See how that Denver offense can do this year. Kittle, obviously very good tight end. And then you got 2 defenses. You got the Eagles and Bucks. You know, pretty good defenses. The Bucks, I think, improved quite a bit in the offseason. And then you got Dan Bailey, who's, you know, a solid kicker. Number 11, I've got Lincoln. Your auto draft quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. He's obviously Patrick Mahomes. He had a bit of an injury last year that kept him up for a number of weeks, but you know, he's looking to come back. A lot of continuation from last year in terms of the offense. So, and then you got Cam, who's opposite of that. He's on a brand new team. He didn't play last year except for maybe a couple weeks. He could potentially, though, have a great season. So we'll see how he goes. Joe Mixon, Le'Veon Bell, and Zach Moss, your running backs. Obviously, Mixon's very skilled. Le'Veon as well, and Zach Moss is the rookie. It's just a matter of, for Mixon, if that offense can work well and not have what they had in the first half of the season. Le'Veon Bell, he's got Adam Gase as a head coach. And then Zach Moss, he's just got to, if he can, you know, take the lead role in Buffalo, then he could be very fantasy relevant. So we'll see about those guys. And then you got your receivers, DK, TY, those guys. DK had a very good rookie season last year, looking to improve. Be like the 1A and 1B in Seattle, and see if Russ can get his wish of airing it out. So he could definitely be on the rise this year compared to last year. TY. New quarterback there, could do well. He's also getting up there in age. He's about, I don't know, 29 or so, 30-ish. I didn't check before. recording, so I don't really know for sure, but Ty could definitely impress this year. Deontay Johnson, Brashad Perriman, Darius Slayton, Golden Tate. You got 2 Giants in there. One of them's out to do well, right? And then you got Brashad, who's on a new team this year. The Jets, I believe, they are looking for some receivers after losing Robbie. So he'll see if he does well. And Deontay Johnson, obviously on the Steelers, he's probably the number 2 target after Juju. And he did well last year, and we'll see if that offense can actually function this year. Yeah, you got Gronk and Doyle as your tight ends. Gronk is kind of like a couple other guys you talked about. Took a year off, coming back to a new team. Seems to be the theme of this year. You know, a lot of people think he's going to do it, but a lot of people think he's not going to do well. It just really kind of depends on what camp you're residing in. If he could do well, he's Gronk. He's a future Hall of Famer, but he's also getting old, been a year off of football. I guess we'll find out. And then Jack Doyle's, you know, just Jack Doyle. And then you got the Ravens and Zane Gonzalez. Both solid. Ravens especially so. He top 10 defense last year. So they don't have Earl anymore, but you know, they were doing well without him. So number 10, I've got Macy. As her quarterback, she has Matt Ryan, Matty Ice. Always a solid quarterback, but he's been a bit fluctuationally the last couple years. Been really good year, then kind of poor, really good, kind of poor. Last year it was kind of poor, so I mean, looking good for you potentially. Gonna go good this year. Running backs, you got Eckler and Raheem Mostert as your starting 2, I presume. And you got Eckler. Eckler last year had Phillip Rivers, who liked to not run and dunk it down to the running back, but then now he's got Tyrod. So he likes to scramble more, so we'll see if he gets the same amount of reception work as he did last year, but still got a new contract, unquestionably the starter over there in LA. So we'll see how he does. Raheem, obviously he's the number 1 running back probably the number 1 running back in San Fran, who likes to run the ball because Jimmy G can't throw worth crap. No, he's all right, but he doesn't throw much. Tariq Cohen, Sonny Michel, Benny Snell, those guys are all solid backups. Sonny Michel could see some starting work, but most of those snaps would probably be for him at the backup position. Then you got Julio, Stephon, Sterling, Josh Reynolds, Danny Amendola, and Anthony Miller. Pretty solid wide receiver core, especially Julio. He's always great. Gets a lot of receptions, a lot of yards. Stephon is on a new team this year, so we'll see how he can do in Buffalo. Sterling Shepard, pretty solid guy. Josh Reynolds, he's on the Rams, he could do well. And then Danny Amendola, he's a good slot receiver, I think. And then Anthony Miller is that number 2 over in Chicago with the quarterback issues. So we'll see if they can work that out. Mark Andrews as your tight end. He's top 5 quarterback last year. I don't remember exactly what number, but he's definitely a top 5 did I say quarterback? He's top 5 tight end. So probably do pretty well. Seahawks defense and Young Ho Koo. Koo was a big. He was a big fan of mine. I was a big fan of him. Well, hopefully I'm a big fan of his, but he was a big fan of mine towards the end of the season last year. And then you got the Seahawks defense. Pretty good. All right, number 9, we've got Big Talk Fiala. Quarterbacks, Kyler, who could be this year's Lamar. Drew Lock, who, it's either make or break year for him, so he could do well, but he'd also do real poor. You got 2 running backs total on your team. Saquon, who obviously it's Saquon, he'll do well. And then Malcolm Brown for the Rams. He could be the starter, but it's looking like they might do a committee over there. So we'll see about that. Then obviously you got D-Hop, Calvin, OBJ, all 3 solid guys. Calvin could break out this year. D-Hop, new team. Who dis? It's DeAndre Hopkins. He could do well. Kyler likes to throw the ball, fast-paced offense over there. Obviously the number 1 target, and he could have a really good year, but question marks because it's a new team. A lot of times guys go to new teams and don't necessarily see the amount of same success as they had in the team prior. I know that happened with a lot of Packers wide receivers. So we'll see how this thing goes for D-Hop. OBJ, as I mentioned at the top of the show, he likes to get pooped on. But he's on the Browns for a reason. He could do well this year. I guess we'll find out. Didn't do super great last year. Could have been due to injury, but it's Odell Beckham Jr. He's very talented. So see how it goes. And then you got Steven Sims Jr., a Washington football team member. You got Dwayne Haskins chucking him the rock, so we'll see how that goes for him. And then you got a pair of oh, never mind. Randall Cobb, not a Cowboy anymore. He's on Houston. We'll see how they do over there. And then you got CeeDee Lamb, who some people think he's going to have a great year. Some people think he'll do better than Michael Gallup. You know who you are, Alex Fiala, but he won't.
You won't.
Anyway, you got 3 tight ends. Jared Cook, Greg Olsen, and Noah Fant, all 3 solid tight ends. 2 older guys and 1 young guy, so, age is but a number. Moving on to your defense, you have the Steelers defense, who's always a good defense. Not always, but pretty solid the last couple years, and then Harrison Butker, the kicker for the defending Super Bowl champions. So, all right, number 8, we've got State. I didn't do that for the rhyme, but it just happened to work out that way. All right, number 8, State. His quarterback is Lamar Jackson, who is, likely to be one of the best quarterbacks this year. He obviously finished number 1 last year, and he won MVP. So we'll see how well he can do this year. At running backs, you've got Antonio Gibson, you got David Johnson, rookie there for Antonio and David, going to a new team. Could do pretty well over there, but I guess we'll find out. It's really, a mixed bag. See what happens. Then you got Matt Breida, Robinson, as you picked up earlier, and then Joshua Kelly. All 3 solid bench running backs. Probably do pretty well if you had to plug them in. James Robinson could see a lot of work this year, depending on how that whole running back situation in Jacksonville shakes out. You've got Devontae Adams, Juju, and Tyler Boyd, Equanimous St. Brown, and Ayuk as your receivers. Devontae obviously is very good. Juju, he was thinking to be good last year, but didn't turn out so well. But he is a very skilled receiver. Tyler Boyd could see a bump this year with Joe Burrow as his quarterback. EQ, not expecting too much from him, but it'd be great if he could do well. And then Ayuk, looking, if he can get healthy, he could be a very good receiver there in San Fran. At tight end, you got Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. Gesicki's looking to break out this year, people are thinking. Hunter Henry could also do pretty well. He did all right last season, finished I think in the top 10, but was injured for quite a bit there. Defense, you got the Bills, who are very good defensive-wise, and you got Greg the Leg. Greg the Leg, his name is Greg the Leg for a reason, so good kicker there. Number 7, we've got Adam, Russell Wilson, Jared Goff as the quarterbacks. Got that NFC West. Russell obviously pretty good, Mr. Unlimited, as some people call him. He's looking to air it out this year. He wants to be freed. Speaking of being freed, running back Aaron Jones. He did amazing last year. I believe finished at running back 3. Had a lot of touchdowns. But so we'll see if he can continue on with that pace this year. And you got Jordan Howard and Marlon Mack. Jordan is a new running back in Miami. We'll see how he can do there. Marlon Mack he's in his 2nd year, I believe, but he's got a big man JT right behind him, so he could be potentially on his way out. Then you got Jerick McKinnon and D'Angelo Williams, D'Angelo Williams, maybe not, I don't know. I don't do too much research, but I just know he plays for Kansas City. And then Jerick McKinnon, he's good. All right, receivers, you got Mike Evans, who's, I don't know if you saw, but he's got a hamstring injury right now, as he ended the season with one last year. So maybe he can hopefully play this week. If not, you might have to pivot, because you got Tyler Lockett, Emmanuel Hunter behind them, Hunter Renfro, to be exact. Lockett, very solid receiver, could easily finish in the top 12, I'd say, definitely top 24. Emmanuel Sanders is on the new offense with Drew Brees, the guy who likes to throw the ball for 5,000 yards every year. And then Hunter Renfro is, could have a good year, could not. I guess time will tell. Tight ends, you got Evan Ingram and Tyler Higbee. Ingram's had some injury issues, but he's a very fast, very athletic tight end over there in New York. And then Higbee on the Rams, he did well last year at the end. Maybe at the beginning, I don't remember. But he's got Gerald Everett to compete with, and maybe other guy or so. So we'll see how he can do this year. And then as a defense, you got the Minnesota Vikings and kicker Will Lutz, both solid choices for those positions. So yeah, that's your team. Number 6, you've got Caleb, new to the league this year. Drew Brees and Carson Wentz as his quarterbacks. Drew Brees, as I just mentioned, likes to throw tons of yards, and he's probably going to go for a lot of touchdowns this year because of potentially this being his last season. And then Carson Wentz has been, been ups and downs, but overall, I think Carson's a pretty talented quarterback. So we can see how he does this year. Running backs, you got Dalvin Cook, Devin Singletary, Duke Johnson, and can we get another D? No, we got Justin Jackson. But those guys, especially, Dalvin finished top 5, I think, last year. Devin did pretty well last year, but as I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about Zach Moss, he could fall by the wayside if he doesn't, keep it up. Duke, he's over there in Houston behind the other D, Johnson. So, he's probably not a guy you'd love to start, but he probably wouldn't be terrible if you had to. And then Justin Jackson over on the Chargers could do well. We'll find out. Then your receivers, you got Chris Godwin, Kenny Galladay, Julian Edelman, Larry Fitzgerald, and Christian Kirk. You got a pair of Cardinals back there. Christian Kirk, I think, is going to do well this year, and Larry's looking, he's always a solid guy, has more tackles than he does drops. Fun fact. Another older guy, got Julian, who's always a PPR machine, can score quietly 20 points a week. But he's got Cam this year, a quarterback that just he runs more than Tom Brady. I don't know if he's noticed, but then you got Kenny Galladay and Chris Godwin. Those are both really good receivers. That's a nice pair. Yeah, we'll see how those guys can all do this year. And then tight ends, you got Hayden Hurst, Dallas Goedert. Goddard's really good in Philly, even though he's not the starter. But you got Hayden Hurst, who is the new tight end over there in Atlanta. So we'll see if he can take a similar role as Hooper did last year and can break out and such. Then moves us on to the defense. Saints and Justin Tucker, pretty solid players and such. All right, next we got Brian at number 5. We got Aaron Rodgers and Gardner Minshew. Rodgers has been historically a very good quarterback, but the last couple of years has been a bit rough for him. So see if we can bounce back this year. And then you got the young gun, Uncle Rico, Gardner Minshew. People are thinking he could do pretty well this year, but I guess we'll find out. He did well towards, not, breathtakingly well last year, but people love the guy, so we'll see what happens. And then running backs, you got Clyde, Mr. Chubb, Melvin Gordon, Bryce Love, and Harris, the running back for the Patriots. I forget his first name, maybe Damian. Clyde is going to be, I think, a stud this year, especially on that offense and being the starter right off the bat. And they got Nick Chubb, who's, again, pretty good. He's just a baller, big, tough running guy. And then Melvin, he's presumably going to be the starter over in Denver, who's potentially could be a very surprisingly good offense this year. And then you got Bryce Love and Harris, who both could, impress this year. I guess we'll find out. And you got DJ Moore, Will Fuller, Allen Lazard King, I apologize, Lazard, and then Justin Jefferson. Lazard he's looking to be the Packers' #2 receiver, and you know, if you're the Packers receiver, with the quarterback you have, you can always do pretty well. Justin, he's presumably maybe the second or third receiver for Minnesota, so we'll see how he does. Will Fuller, he's also had some injury issues, but depending on if he can stay healthy or not, he could be a very viable fantasy option. And then DJ Moore started his breakout last year over there in Carolina. He's got a new quarterback, Teddy, who can throw the ball much better than Kyle Allen. And I think he's poised to continue his breakout this year in year 2. Tight ends, you got Darren the Wallace and Jonnu Smith, both solid tight ends. Let's see if the Walrus can keep it going, and if Jono can take this new opportunity with what's his face gone, and you know, impress. And then you got the 49ers defense, who's obviously a very good defense, and Kai Fairbairn as your kicker, pretty good kicker. So Brian at number 5. Number 4, we got Sacco, Colin, Deshaun Watson, and Big Ben as the quarterbacks, both very solid. Ben obviously injured last year for most of the year, but you know, he's not one to shy away from throwing the ball. And then you got Deshaun, who's got a new contract, a very good receiver, can run, can throw, can pretty much do it all. You got Zeke, James Conner, James White, and Boston Scott as your running backs. Zeke is freaking Zeke, so not much to say about that. James Conner, if he can be healthy, he could be a very good running back. Well, James White is, you know, probably the starter, maybe in New England, but I guess we don't really know because it's very tough to predict what they're going to do over there, that widely built. And then you got Boston Scott, who really turned it on last year, kind of became the Darren Sproles type of receiver back there in Philly. And, you know, depending on the health of Miles, and even if Miles is healthy, Boston could see a good amount of action. A.J. Brown, Jarvis Landry, Henry Ruggs, Sammy Watkins, Mike Williams, and Antonio Brown as your receivers. I know for sure one of those guys won't play for at least the first 8 weeks of the season this year. But the rest of your receivers, Mike Williams, solid. You know, Sammy Watkins, he should be good, right? But except for that 1 week last year, wasn't really. Henry Ruggs, very fast rookie. See how he can do in Las Vegas. Jarvis was the #1 receiver on the Browns last year. Doesn't like to get pooped on as far as I know, but he can do pretty well, I'm sure. Again, and then A.J. Brown, who was breaking out last year, and we'll see if he can continue that this year. Travis Kelce had tight end. Again, Travis Kelce, best tight end in the league for the last 4 years. Nothing more to say about that, really. And then the Bears defense and Chris Boswell as your defense and kicker. Bears defense, always good. Chris Boswell, usually pretty good too. Let's call it number 4. Number 3, we've got T-Corn, Daniel Jones as his quarterback. Once he came in, took over for Eli last year, he did pretty well. It's just a matter of if he can keep that going this year. I know he's got a tough start to the season, so I'm not super sure if he can start the year off hot. And then you got running backs, you got CMC, Chris Carson, Chase Edmonds, J.K. Dobbins, and I never remember his first name, but Evans, the running back in Tennessee, obviously CMC. And then Chris Carson, he hurt himself last year. Well, he didn't hurt himself. He got hurt last year, but he did pretty well when he was playing, so he could be a very solid running back again this year. Chase Edmonds, even if he's not the starter, he's still looking to get a lot of usage over there in AZ. And then JK could very much be the #1 running back for Baltimore this year. And that offense loves to run the ball. So your wide receivers are Terry McLaurin, Courtland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, Preston Williams, Jalen Reagor, and Michael Pittman, all guys who've got a very good chance of doing well this year. Once Deebo gets back, he's going to be that #1 receiver over there in San Fran. You know, all guys, Terry McLaurin could break out this year. Courtland could break out this year. Preston did very well last year over there in Miami. Now he's got Tua thrown to him. Once Rhaegar gets back up and running, he could do very well. A lot of exciting prospects there over at wide receiver for you, T-Corn. Tight end, you got TJ Hawkinson. He had a great start of the season, and when I say start of the season, last year, I mean the first game, I think. Maybe he just fell off. And he got injured, so not super great for him that way, but he could bounce back this year. Defense, you've got nobody yet, but I'm assuming you'll probably pick one up before the start of the season, officially or whatever. And then you got kicker as a suck up, so he can suck up those points. And then number 2, this was number 2 and 1 for me were very flip-floppy. I flipped them back and forth like 3 times. But I have myself at number 2, and I could be biased. Like I said, I don't make the rules, but this is just how the cookies crumble. Number quarterback for me, I've got Stafford, who got hurt last year, but was on pace to do very well. And he's got great receiving options, so he could easily be a quarterback 1 this year to end the year. My most proud position is my running backs. I got Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Jonathan Taylor, and Tevin Coleman. Josh and Miles very well could finish top 5, maybe definitely top 12, I'd say, but they could easily finish top 5 potentially. And we got JT, who is a freaking beast, and I mean, again, biased because he went to Wisconsin, but he's got a great offensive line over there in Indy, and he's probably going to end the year as the starter over there. And once he does take over, man, it's just going to be, don't want to stand in his way. And then Tevin Coleman, you know, he did pretty well last year in San Fran, and he could do well again this year. So I guess we'll see how he goes. And then my receivers, I've got Robert Woods, Hollywood, so that's kind of funny, Michael Gallup, Marvin Jones, Paris Campbell, Brian Edwards, and James Washington. Robert, quietly every year, does really well, it seems. Hollywood is looking to break out this year potentially. Michael Gallup did very well last year in Dallas, and is looking to do that much better, I'd say, this year. Marvin Jones, I just said Marvin Jones. Paris Campbell, Brian Edwards, and James Washington, all, you know, looking to be pretty good this year. Edwards is obviously a rookie, and Washington, I believe this is his 2nd year, and Paris is 2nd or 3rd. But all of those guys could be relevant, but, you know, not super duper likely, but could happen. Blake Jarwin is my tight end, another Dallas man. Looking to potentially break out this year, got a new deal. Defense, you got the Colts, pretty good, probably. And then Jake Allied is my kicker, who, again, is a pretty good kicker, so hopefully he'll do well. Number 1, we got Bruce. You got Josh Allen and Tua as your quarterbacks. Josh Allen could break out this year, and, you know, we don't know what Tua is going to be, but he could be very fantasy relevant. Running backs, you got Kenyon Drake, Mark Ingram, Chris Thompson, Leonard Fournette, Philip Lindsay, and Raquel Armstead. Kenyon, new team. Well, not totally new, but, you know, he was on pace last year with the Cardinals to do very well. Mark Ingram, always pretty solid, especially when he was with Baltimore last year. Chris Thompson, looking to get some good work if he can stay healthy. Leonard Fournette on a new team. We'll see how he can do there. Phil Lindsay, pretty solid. And Raquel, he could also do pretty well. Receivers, you got Tyreek Hill, Amari Cooper, Devontae Parker, N'Keal Harry, and Mecole Hardman. Tyreek Hill obviously is a freaking speed demon, so he'll probably do pretty well. And you got Amari Cooper, Devontae Parker, N'Keal, and Mecole, who are all, obviously Amari is probably like the number 1. And then Devontae, number 1, N'Keal is looking probably to be the number 1, and then Mecole is probably going to be Patrick's 3rd target behind Tyreek and Travis Kelce. Gonna see if he can break out this year in his sophomore year. So again, pretty solid receivers all the way through. Tight end, you got Chris Herndon, looking to potentially break out with this year at the Jets. See how Sam Darnold can do. But yeah, pretty solid there. And then you got your defense as the Chargers. and your kicker is Mike Bagley. Both solid guys. Not many bad things to say about those two, but yeah, those are the power rankings. Ooh, fuck, this is long. All right, now it's time for the weekly matchup previews. First up, we're just gonna start with my matchup, me versus Brian. Some pretty solid players on both sides. I think a couple key players to watch in this matchup are, for Brian, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who, you know, could be very, very good, and Will Fuller, who could also be very, very good, but they necessarily both haven't shown it. Obviously, Clyde's a rookie, but Will Fuller has been injured, and now he's presumed he could get some serious playing time this week, especially if Cooks is out. And then for me, I've got Hollywood and Jarwin, who are key players to watch. Hollywood, Clyde, well, I guess he's a second year, but he could also break out. And then Jarwin, he could also break out. So I guess it'll be interesting to see how those two go. My winner for this game is going to be, I'm going to pick myself. Can't really pick against myself. It's not really cool if I did, but anyway. So yeah, for that matchup, Joey is the winner. All right, next matchup, Michael versus State Farm. Key players to watch are Antonio Gibson and Juju. Gibson and Juju could see some, well, Gibson could see some pretty good playing time, and we'll see if Juju can get back to his form he was in 2 years ago when he was pretty solid. For Michael, Montgomery and AJ Green are players to watch. We'll see if Montgomery can do well this season, and AJ Green, we'll see if he can get back to his AJ Green elite form. So those are two players to watch from Michael's team. For this matchup, I had the winner being State Farm. Caleb versus Bruce. A couple key players to watch in this one. I have, for Caleb, Galladay and Singletary. We'll see if Galladay, because he's been injured lately, we'll see if he can play and play well. And then you got Singletary, who, again, not injured, but we'll see if he can do well. Maybe Zach Moss will vulture some points from him, but I guess we'll find out. And then for Bruce, we've got Kenyon Drake, who, like I mentioned before, kind of a new team, but we'll see if they can keep up the same level of production that he had last year. And then quarterback Josh Allen, poised for breakout this year, but I guess we'll find out. He's got some new weapons with Stefan and Zach Moss, I guess, but, you know, still going to be interesting to watch. Winner for this one, we've got Bruce. Next up, we've got T-Corn versus Sam. Key players to watch for this one. For T-Corn's team, we've got Scary Terry and Todd Gurley. Terry's possibly able to break out this year, so we'll see if he can do that. See if Haskins can get things under control. And then Todd Gurley is on a new team. We can see how well he can do in Atlanta. And then on Sam's team, I couldn't pick just two players. I picked three players to watch. I picked Ronald Jones, DJ Chark, and Austin Hooper. Hooper is on a new team, much like Gurley. So we'll see how well he can do in Cleveland. DJ Chark looking to potentially break out this year, so we'll see how he does. And then Rojo, see if he can take a next step and improve his playing ability from last year. And a winner for this matchup, I've got T-Corn. Then we've got Fiala versus Adam. Key players for Fiala, Hopkins and OBJ. Hopkins, much like a lot of the guys we've been talking about, on a new team, but obviously very skilled receiver. So we'll see how he can do on that new scheme. And then OBJ had a bit of a rough year last year, but we'll see if he can bounce back. He's been working a lot with Baker this year, getting pooped on. So we'll see if that can help out for this matchup first week. And for Adam, we've got Evans and Evan Ingram. Mike Evans and Evan Ingram. Mike Evans, as I mentioned earlier, probably is a bit injured right now, and we'll see if he can play week 1, and if he does, how effective he'll be. And then Evan Ingram, kind of like Evans, not injured right now, but he has been, and we'll see if he can produce like he potentially could in this first matchup. And for this matchup, I've got the winner being Fiala. Next up, we've got Macy versus Colin. For Macy, I had 3 players picked again. for key players. Stephon Diggs, Austin Eckler, and Raheem Mostert. We'll start with Mostert. He proved he can run the ball very well last year, and so we'll just see if he can keep it up this year. Austin Eckler, mentioned him earlier. We'll see if he can produce the same way he did running and passing or receiving the ball. So we'll see how he can do. And Stephon Diggs is on a new team, so we can see if he can produce as well as he did last year, or take a step up, or potentially take a step down. Kind of a question mark there. So that's why he's a key player to watch. And then for Colin, key players, as we've got James Conner and Henry Ruggs. James Conner because he was injured for most of last season, and so we'll see if he can stay on the field this year. And if he does, he could be very, very good running back. And then Henry Ruggs, he's a rookie, but he was one of the first rookies drafted, rookie receivers. So we'll see how well he can play in the NFL. For this one, I've got Colin as the winner. And finally, Derek versus Lincoln. Key players for Derek, I've got Cam Akers and Deshaun Jackson. We'll see how well Jackson will do. Much like a lot of people's players, he has an injury bug, but when he's on the field, can be very, very good. And then Cam Akers, we'll see how he can produce over in LA with that crowded backfield. And then for Lincoln, I picked 3 players: Le'Veon Bell, T.Y. Hilton, and Gronk. Le'Veon, we know he's a good running back, but he could be being held down by Adam number 2 Gase. And then you got T.Y. Hilton, who is a very, again, skilled player, but injuries and inconsistencies have soured a taste on him. But new quarterback, he could do pretty well, potentially. And Gronk, like I said before, he's coming back to the league this year after being out for a year on a new team. Same quarterback he's had the whole time, but he's a year older. Quarterback's a year older, new system, crowded tight end room. We'll see how he does. So for this one, I've got Lincoln as the winner. And just a little bit of a fun fact about this matchup. The flex spots feature D. Jackson versus D. Johnson, so we can see who does better. So that is the matchups for this week. And I think that'll bring an end to this show this week. So with that, thank you and thank you. All right, here goes my flip for the first week of the regular season. And I'll go with Brian since I'm facing him this week. Not quite.